Chapter 156. Aubrey only came out of the fitting room after quite a while. Not bad. This is the one. Sonia nodded in satisfaction when she saw her outfit. After flashing a smile, Aubrey turned around to look at Lucian. "You're here." Lucian merely nodded expressionless. Aubrey pretended like she didn't mind his aloofness. With a smile, she said, "Mrs. Farwell invited me along to get my outfit done. What do you think of my outfit? Isn't it nice?" With that, she twirled to show her outfit. Lucian wasn't pleased with the fact that Sonia had set him up. When he heard that, he responded with a cursory nod and answered, "Yes." Aubrey was slightly embarrassed when she saw how cold Lucian's attitude was. However, she maintained a smile on her face. Sonia finally stood up and said, "Since Aubrey is also going to the Queen residence, she should just ride with us." Aubrey smiled. "Thank you, Mrs. Farwell." After thanking Sonia, Aubrey glanced at Lucian sheepishly. Lucian furrowed his brows unbothered. "Let's go." Since Sonia had already said so, he couldn't have said no even if he wanted to. With that, he turned around and left without sparing Aubrey a glance. Seeing that, Aubrey lowered her gaze aggressively. Sonia comforted her by patting her arm, signaling her to not mind him. Aubrey nodded obediently and wrapped her arm around Sonia's arm affectionately before walking out with her in the car. Lucian kept silent throughout the entire journey and didn't bother to conceal his cold attitude. In fact, he would only respond whenever Sonia asked him something. Aubrey could only clench her fists under her dress to vent her frustration. "I must assert my dominance over Roxanne later. In the Queen residence, Alfred could only stay on his feet to exchange pleasantries with the guests for a while before his body gave in. Jonathan then brought him a wheelchair so that he could continue meeting the other guests. Roxanne thought she could excuse herself after greeting Alfred. However, had a different idea. Had told her to stay by his side. "Since you're also going to interact with the guests, let me make it easier by introducing you to them." Jonathan wanted her to stick around as well. Roxanne had no choice but to stay by Alfred's side. She then followed him around to greet all the guests one by one. Soon, Jonathan's parents showed up. "Are you Dr. Jarvis? Finally, we've met." Jonathan and Frida had told about how you've cured old Murdoch Queen. "Not only do you have superb medical skills, but you're stunning libido as well, Dr. Jarvis." "Praise that hun right a chance," Jonathan's mother, with a smile. "Health in check in the future." Roxanne fell silent and smiled with her pursed lips. Frida wasn't happy when she heard how her parents were complimenting Roxanne. She then scanned the surroundings to look for Lucian and Aubrey. When she realized neither of them was there yet, she glanced at the entrance in anticipation. Let's see if that woman could still smile when she sees Lucian showing up alongside Aubrey. Frida didn't need to wait long, though. A few minutes later, Lucian showed up at the entrance of the mansion. "Lucian is here," Frida exclaimed too. Get everyone's attention. Chapter 157. As soon as those words fell, everyone in the Queen residence turned toward the mansion's entrance. Roxanne also did the same instinctively. Lucian was dressed in a tailored black suit. The suit was so well fitted that it was showcasing the man's toned figure, with most of his hair combed to the back. His perfect facial features were for everyone to see. At the same time, those few stray strands of hair hanging down from his forehead prompted his gaze to appear even more icy cold than they were. All in all, he looked cold and distant. Everyone's gazes fell on him at once. Aubrey appeared behind him wearing a black dress. Her curly hair was hanging down on her chest, and her red lips were exceptionally catching. At that moment, her arm was seen wrapping around Sonia's affectionately as they followed Lucian from behind, with their matching outfits, and the affectionate interaction between Aubrey and Sonia It was as if they were telling the world that Aubrey was bound to be the future daughter-in-law of the Farwell family. Upon seeing that scene, Frida glanced at Roxanne from the corners of her eyes. Still, she was dissatisfied when she saw Roxanne's unprepared facial expression. Right then, she deliberately held her mother's hand and exclaimed, "Wow, Lucian and Aubrey look so great together." Henrietta didn't know what they were up to, but she was aware of the close relationship between their Pearson family and the Farwell family. Besides, Aubrey was always seen together with Lucian. She nodded in agreement and uttered, "It seems like they might get married soon." Roxanne's expression changed slightly when she heard that. However, she quickly composed herself and lifted her head on Segan. Jonathan was standing next to Roxanne when he remembered the conflict between her and Lucian, so he subconsciously glanced at her. He was surprised when he saw how calm she looked. Lucian wasn't happy with the attention he had gotten from the crowd. His gaze turned cold, and he walked straight toward the center of birthday banquet. He wanted to just greet Alfred before coming up with an excuse to separate from Aubrey. Henrietta and Zachary were closely acquainted with the Farwell family, hence, they went up to welcome the guests with a smile. "Hi, welcome, this is," as they spoke. Both of them glanced at Sonia. Sonia merely smiled in response. Next to her, Aubrey seemed slightly shy when she greeted the elder Spallettly. After that, she just listened as they chatted. As they were chatting, they were walking toward Alfred. Roxanne panicked when she saw them approaching. She averted her gaze and wanted to just bid Alfred goodbye before leaving. Just when she wanted to do that, some guests came up to her and greeted her. Roxanne had no choice but to exchange greetings with them. "I've missed the perfect opportunity to get out of here." Seconds later, Lucian and the others had arrived in front of her. Roxanne kept her head hung low to make herself look as inconspicuous as possible. First, she heard the man greet Alfred in a deep voice before hearing the latter respond joyfully. Right after that, she felt the man's gaze fixate on her. Roxanne clenched her fists and raised her gaze to look at the man. When Alfred mentioned her to them, she politely nodded at them. The whole time, Lucian couldn't take his eyes off of her. When Henrietta and Zachary went up to greet him earlier on, Lucian had already noticed Roxanne's presence. When he saw her standing next to Alfred, she looked elegant but slightly disinterested. With the long white dress on, she looked as graceful as a swan. Although she hadn't put in much effort to dress up, she was still rather captivating. On the other hand, she had been avoiding eye contact with him from the moment he showed up. The more she avoided him, the more Lucian wanted to take a closer look at her facial expression. Sonia noticed her son was distracted, so she followed his line of sight. Her expression turned grim when her gaze landed on Roxanne. Chapter 158. Roxanne kept silent after she greeted them. Since Alfred didn't give her a chance to leave, she had no choice but to stay and listen to their conversation. Sonia retracted her gaze from Roxanne and looked at Alfred earnestly. "What a blessing it is, fourth queen family, now that you're fine." Alfred smiled and nodded before turning toward Roxanne. "It's all thanks to Dr. Jarvis. Without her, I would still be bedridden." As soon as those words fell, everyone turned to look at Roxanne. Henrietta chimed in, "Indeed, Dr. Jarvis is the Queen family's savior." With those few words, she had directed Sonia and the others' attention toward Roxanne. Roxanne furrowed her brows slightly and smiled. "I wouldn't call myself a savior, though. As a doctor, I was just doing my job. I'm very glad to have cured old Mr. Queen." Alfred's admiration toward her grew when he saw how humble she was. Sonia's face fell when she noticed Alfred's attitude toward Roxanne. However, she maintained her smile and said sarcastically, "Not too shabby for a young doctor like her." We've looked for so many renowned doctors, and none of them succeeded. How surprising. Although it seemed like Sonia was praising her, Roxanne could sense the hostility in those words. Roxanne's heart sank and staggered Sonia. Aubrey wasn't pleased with how everyone was putting the spotlight in Roxanne. As soon as silence ensued, she let go of Sonia's arm and went up to Alfred in a coquettish tone. She said, "Old Mr. Queen, you're going to live a long and stress-free life now that you've survived the illness." Alfred shifted his attention toward her and smiled when he heard that. "Why do you say so?" "Well, that's what people say. I know you're going to live a long life with great prosperity." Old Mr. Queen. Aubrey smiled. Alfred was elated when he heard those sweet words. "Thank you. Let's hope you're right." With that, he shifted his gaze back toward Roxanne. It was as if he was trying to say that Roxanne deserved all the credits. Aubrey noticed it, so she purposely pouted and blamed herself when said, "It's such a shame I couldn't find a doctor as impressive as Dr. Jarvis. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to suffer for such a long time." Old Mr. Queen. Alfred hurriedly waved his hands in dismissal. "And he uttered a little. Why would you say that? Although I've been bedridden all these years, I'm well aware of what was happening around me all these years. You've gone through hoops to find me so many talented doctors, haven't you? I'll forever remember your kind gestures." With her reddened eyes, Aubrey swore, "Yet all the doctors I found were useless." Alfred was moved when he saw how caring she was. With a smile on his face, he said, "I know you're a good person. You deserve the credit for finding me those doctors for the past years. Otherwise, I would have suffered more." Henrietta quickly comforted her as well. "You've been very thoughtful, Aubrey. In fact, you've even been treating old Mr. Queen like your own grandpa. We're very grateful." After saying that, she remembered how Lucian had also contributed talking Alfred over the years. "Lucian, you too." "Thank you," she added. In response, Lucian slightly nodded. "We were just doing our duties as the younger generation." Hearing that, Henrietta immediately glanced at their outfits and couldn't help but say, "Good things come in pairs, right? Since you've already been together with Aubrey for so many years, I guess we'll meet each other again at your engagement party." Chapter 159. Jonathan glanced at Roxanne again when he heard Henrietta mention Lucian and Aubrey's marriage. At that moment, Roxanne's eyes were slightly lowered while wearing a faint smile. Hence, he had no idea what was going through Roxanne's mind throughout the whole time. Frida's attention was entirely on Roxanne. Needless to say, she noticed the slight change of expression on Roxanne's face when Henrietta mentioned the marriage. Frida's excitement grew when she noticed that, indeed, Lucian and Aubrey are like a match made in heaven. Although they aren't married yet, I bet everyone has long regarded you guys as a family. Shechemeddin. With that, she threw a hubris glance at Roxanne, since Sonia had been planning for it as well. She smiled and said, "We've undoubtedly been delaying it for way too long recently. Both sides of the family have been planning to hasten their engagement. We'll surely be having a discussion soon." Frida wanted to fan the flames, but Lucian suddenly said, "Old Murdoch Queen, since it's your birthday banquet, perhaps we shouldn't talk about my affairs." Upon hearing that, Alfred was stunned momentarily before glancing at Lucian and Aubrey. These two must be embarrassed. He then nodded with a smile and changed the topic. After that, the others dared not to mention the matter anymore. Right then, Roxanne's anxiousness lessened, and she breathed a sigh of relief inwardly. However, she was starting to feel out of place when the topics that followed had nothing to do with she was getting annoyed after listening to their conversation for a while more. Hence, she wanted to find a place to hide and relax. In between the conversation, Roxanne uttered softly, "Old Murdoch Queen." "I'm drained, if there's nothing else. I would like to get some rest." Upon hearing that, Alfred turned toward her worriedly. "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" Roxanne smiled shyly and answered, "Oh, no. It's just that I've been standing in my pair of heels for a while now. I would like to sit down for a bit." Since she wasn't feeling unwell, Alfred allowed her to leave by nodding at her. Roxanne politely excused herself from the crowd and turned around to walk toward the corner. When she was turning away, she could still feel the man's gaze fixated on her. Subconsciously, she picked up the pace. "Old Mr. Queen, please excuse me." Lucian's gaze darkened when he saw how many pairs of eyes lingered on Roxanne when she was walking toward a couch to take a seat. Alfred was puzzled. Where are you going, considering the Farwell family's status in society? It was safe to assume that the prominent figuress at the birthday banquet would approach Lucian to greet him, instead of the other way around. Hence, Lucian was supposed to wait for the others to take the initiative and greet him. However, Lucian frowned and struggled to find an excuse for himself. Sonia read his mind and knew he was eager to look for Roxanne. Displeased, she grabbed his arm and smiled at him. "There are a Fielders over there who are collaborating with our family. Logically speaking, since you're here, you should go and greet them." Lucian followed her line of sight and saw a few elders, who were indeed the Farwell family's acquaintances. After some hesitation, he agreed to her request. Sonia then shot Aubrey a glance. Seeing that, Aubrey uttered, "Since I know those elders as well, I was just thinking about greeting them." With that, she followed Lucian from behind with a smile. Lucian furrowed his brows without a reason to chase her away. He had no choice but to let her follow Hyanam in the eyes of the public. They looked a lot like a perfect couple.